From the cell that refuses to die to the awareness that was never alive in that sense. Your body is killing itself right now. Deliberately, precisely, with great sophistication. Approximately 1 million cells per second are being instructed to execute themselves, apoptosis, the cellular suicide program that removes damaged, obsolete, or potentially dangerous cells before they can harm the larger system. The mitochondria release the signal. The caspase enzymes activate. The cell dismantles itself from the inside, packages its debris neatly for immune system removal, and ceases. This is not damage. This is the body's primary maintenance operation. Without apoptosis, you would have webbed fingers. You would have eyes that couldn't focus. You would have a brain that never refined its neural architecture. Every organ you currently operate requires the continuous, precise, voluntary death of its own cells to maintain its function. The body does not fear cellular death. The body depends on it. Cancer is what happens when a cell refuses to die. The tumor-suppressor gene, p53, called the guardian of the genome, monitors cells for damage. When it finds damage beyond repair, it triggers apoptosis. The cell receives the signal. You are too damaged to continue. You are a liability to the organism. Execute. The cancer cell has lost the ability to receive this signal, or has learned to override it. The apoptosis machinery is suppressed. The cell continues dividing. It accumulates mutations. It recruits blood supply for itself. It consumes resources allocated for other systems. It grows. The cell that refuses to die consumes the organism that gave it life. This is not a metaphor. This is p53 biology. This is oncology. But it is also a precise description of what the ego does when it refuses the dissolution that awareness keeps offering it. Convince the ego to surrender voluntarily. The ego performing the convincing is the ego. The surrender being planned is a plan. Planned surrender is ego maintaining control under new branding. The ego announces its own transcendence. The announcement is the ego. Overwhelm the ego through spiritual practice until it capitulates. The ego practices spirituality. The ego achieves spiritual attainment. The ego identifies as the one who has transcended the ego. The refusal continues under new terminology. Wait for life events sufficient to dissolve the ego, loss, crisis, the undeniable evidence that the constructed self cannot hold. This works. It is also not something you can schedule. The dissolution arrives on its own timeline. The ego spends the interval between now and then consuming resources. 3 exits, 3 sealed doors. The Titan examines p53 and finds 4 billion years of evolution producing a system for managing cellular mortality. The cancer cell's refusal, a deviation in a system that is 4 billion years refined. The Titan has watched every species that produced cells also produce the mechanisms for cellular death. The Titan has found no exception. Life, at every scale, depends on the willingness of its parts to die. The ego that refuses dissolution, a deviation in a system that requires dissolution. The Titan is watching. The system will reassert itself. The timing is the Titan's. In one frame, the body, the p53 proteins monitoring every cell, the apoptosis machinery standing ready, the million cells per second being taken cleanly, the organism maintained by its continuous willingness to let its parts go. The nursing home of biological maintenance, just routine operation, just cells doing what cells do. In the other frame, the cremation ground, the 12 sisters moving through the body at the cellular level. They are already in there. They have always been in there. They eat the damaged cells before they can become dangerous. They are the apoptosis machinery. They are the cancer's opponent. They are the body's best allies. Nothing refuses forever, says the first sister, dismantling a tumor cell with practiced hands. Everything goes. The only question is when and at what cost. A river had a section that refused to flow. It said, "I am this water in this configuration, and I will remain." The water upstream backed up. The banks flooded. The fish died. The other sections of the river were poisoned by the stagnation. The river finally broke through. The water that had refused to flow became the river again. It had always been the river. The refusal was the only thing that had ever made it not the river. Yamata Nachiketa in the Katha Upanishad, the Atman is not born and does not die. It is not slain when the body is slain. What is this precisely? Not a promise of immortality for the ego, a structural observation. The ego, the constructed, bounded, time-located sense of being a separate self, is not what the Atman is. The Atman is prior to the ego's construction and is not affected by its dissolution. The dissolution of the ego is not the death of the Atman, it is the Atman ceasing to mistake itself for the ego. P53 is the molecular version of this teaching. The damaged cell is instructed, "You are not the organism. You were a temporary expression of the organism. You have become a liability to the organism. Your dissolution serves the life that produced you." The ego receives the same instruction continuously. It has the same difficulty receiving it. The awareness that knows the ego is running, that knows the refusal is occurring, is not the ego. It is prior to it. It receives the refusal. It has never refused. Cannot refuse. Has nothing to defend.